My buddy, and he is my buddy, Ollie North. How are you, sir?
I am glad to be with you. And by the way, the answer to all of your questions earlier was yes. Benghazi is being glossed over. It is the inevitable Clinton legacy. And now we have another wonderful Obama victory with the collapse of Bush's war in Iraq. Hey, I mean, if you could spin anything, I want to see how they spin the collapse of the Iraqi army without any American backup, without any American boots on the ground. I want to see how they're going to spin this, particularly if the Iranians come in to back up their hand-picked Prime Minister Maliki.
This is a disaster, isn't it?
It is. It's terrible. You know, yesterday I was up in New York. We were getting ready to launch the book. I got a call from a dear friend who's out there on the ground, and he's describing what's happening. And that was when they were north of Mosul. Now they're south of Tikrit, and they're headed for what is inevitably Baghdad. And they're gathering strength. I mean, if the reports are correct, and I believe that they are, and the ones that I'm getting from my friends out there, as well as the stuff we're seeing in the media, finally, this fight has been 72 hours long before anybody in our so-called wanted news services even paid attention to it, Mark. And we've got a disaster in the making. The blood of 4,000 young Americans shed on the soil of Iraq and Mesopotamia, a war that need not have been lost. People wonder why the suicide rate for veterans is going up, because suddenly there's a realization among those who fought there, 2.4 million of them, that they fought in vain because not the war was lost on the ground, didn't have to be. The war was lost in Washington, D.C. by Barack Obama.
In the Oval Office.
Indeed.
And Ollie North, you made many. How many trips have you taken to Iraq?
57 in 24 to Iraq, the rest of them to Afghanistan. First one was to Afghanistan, first several to Afghanistan, and then to Iraq.
And the same's going to happen to Afghanistan, isn't it?
Well, I'm hoping, he said that he's not going to pull the last of the American troops out until 2016. Now, this is a president who has lied consistently, going all the way back to the very first scandal with Fast and Furious, right through the most recent scandal, the Bergdahl slap. The collapse of Mosul is going to be blamed on God knows who, but it certainly couldn't be blamed on Bush, because Bush wasn't here anymore. But it was Bush's war to start with. And the next big scandal is going to be what's happening right now in Geneva, where American diplomats and Iranian diplomats are sitting down secretly to paper over this whole permanent peace deal with Iran to make sure that they can get the sanctions lifted and they can build their nuclear weapons, because that's what's going to happen. That'll be the next scandal.
Boy, the next president's going to have a hell of a mess on his or her hands, isn't he or she?
You and I both had the great privilege, the great blessing of working for Ronald Reagan, and certainly I'm grateful because of where you were when I was doing it. By the way, one of the guys, and just to go back to old days, one of the guys who traveled with me, and we can now say this because it is declassified, was a DEA agent who was seconded over to work with me on some of the very sensitive projects with which I was involved. And, of course, my dear friend Mark Levin was in that office and made sure that I'm going to see him in Florida and just say, he's long since retired, but I'm going to see him. He saw all the stuff that we were doing on the news yesterday about Mosul, about Bergdahl.
Wait a minute, do I know this guy?
Yeah, you know him, but after we go off air, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Now, Ollie, you have you really. I can't write fiction. Honest to God, I have to sit down with a scholar's eye and go through history and so forth and so on.
And you've done a great job with it because you've explained the Constitution of the United States to people who would never otherwise have ever read it, have ever looked at it.
Well, I appreciate that.
No, your book ought to be, your books, plural, ought to be required reading for everyone taking office in America. That includes.
Good luck with that.
No, but Dave Bratt, who just unseated for the very first time in American history a sitting majority leader in the House of Representatives, has just sent a shot across the bow of every permanent politician. I was up in New York last night. I was sitting in the chair to go on with Megyn Kelly, and we were going to talk about Bergdahl. We were going to talk about this burgeoning scandal with what's happening in Iraq, and of course the next scandal, which is the Iranian peace deal. It's a peace deal. Remember, memorize those words. An Iranian peace deal. It's not a permanent agreement on nuclear weapons. It's a peace deal, and it's going to be it'll be touted just like Bergdahl as a great success, just like the Syria policy and the interim agreement with Iran.
Let me ask you something before we run out of time, and I want to get to your book in a second. But did you ever in your lifetime think you'd see a president of the United States release 5 genocidal maniacs like this. I mean, this is completely unacceptable and unconscionable.
Let me just make a quick point. Here's what I know about Bergdahl, and you know how I got involved with it. I've still got his bracelet that his mother gave me. Here's the facts on Bergdahl that I know to be absolutely true. Number one, he was not a prisoner of war. He was a hostage. Number two, he was never held by the Taliban. Number three, the people who held him, the Akani Network, is a criminal enterprise like the Sopranos on steroids. And these 5 people that were released were never part of what those who held Bergdahl wanted. All they wanted was money. I know how much money they wanted.
The Pentagon denies this. The Pentagon said we didn't give them a penny.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something. All the people who held Bergdahl wanted was money, and they weren't the Taliban. The Taliban were never part of the equation. The only thing they wanted was money, and they somehow, I'm absolutely certain, got money. Now, how the 5 Taliban got into this mix, someone probably years from now is going to have to tell the truth about what they knew about how Bergdahl got connected to these 5 absolutely vicious. These aren't even war criminals. These are people responsible for crimes against humanity. Several of them. Fauci is posed with pictures of severed heads that he had just cut off the Northern Alliance troops he'd just defeated as a Taliban commander. I mean, I'm not talking 5 or 10 or 50. I'm talking hundreds of heads of people he personally beheaded. This is a vicious, vicious human being, and his 4 colleagues are no better. And what this administration did, for God knows what reason, is put every American who ever travels overseas at risk because of what he did. Because it's not just American troops on the ground in Afghanistan. It's Americans traveling to the Netherlands or to Indonesia or to wherever they're going who are at risk of being kidnapped and held for not ransom. Ransom you could deal with.
All right, now, Ollie, I've got 3-4 minutes left. Now, your publicist is going to get ticked off of me. Hold on. You've written a fiction called Counterfeit Lies. Tell us about this.
It's a euphemism for the current administration. It's all about the next great scandal that's happening right now. The Iranians are going to get a deal. They're going to sign on. The sanctions are going to be lifted, and they're going to get nuclear weapons, and it's in this book how they're going to get them. And it's all wrapped up in a crime story that starts in Los Angeles. But that's what's happening.
Yeah, that is what's happening.
No, this is, and a lot of people, because they're not paying attention in the media. There's a secret meeting, Mark, as you and I are talking right now, that's happening in Geneva with American diplomats and Iranian diplomats, and there's nobody there from Germany or Great Britain or France or the other so-called 6 powers. They're doing it all on their own. They're crossing the guys, they're changing the words, and they're going to make sure that the Iranians can accept it, and we can accept it, and we're supposed to get the Europeans on board, and the Iranians are going to have the sanctions lifted, and they're going to get nuclear weapons, and this book says how.
But Israel can't tolerate this forever.
The Israelis have an expression, as you know, Mark, I lead a group to Israel every year. The Israelis have an expression. It's on public buildings, it's in ready rooms, it's on military bases all over the place.
Never again.
Never again. It's not a political slogan. It's a way of life. They will not be nuked first. You can read into that all that you want, but they will not be nuked first. And so what I'm saying is the world is taking another step closer to catastrophe with this administration. With what's happening right now, with what's already happened, starting all the way back with Fast and Furious. And the Congress of the United States stands to be indicted along with the rest of them for not stopping it, for not exercising their responsibilities for oversight and the purse strings.
You know, Obama says he learns of these things in the news. I think Congress learns of these things in the news. I mean, it's unbelievable to me.
Well, there's a handful of really great congressmen. You and I have a great congressman, Frank Wolf.
Just not enough.
Forever to be, to convene a select committee. One of the reasons why Eric Cantor is no longer the majority leader and will finish his term in Congress in January is because he opposed that idea. And you know what? It's a great idea, and it's a little late, but it can still be done. And hopefully in January we'll swear in a Congress that's got a majority of right-thinking people in both houses of Congress. And they can put the brakes on some of this craziness that this administration is jamming down the throats of the American people.
All right, the book is Counterfeit Lies. You can get it anywhere, I hope, or you can get it on my sites, my social site. You can't?
Yes, you can. You can get it anywhere.
You can.
Go to Oliver.
All right, let me hold on. Let me help you here. You go Mark Levin Show, Facebook, Mark Levin Show, Twitter, Amazon.com, any major bookstore. And if you want an autographed copy or you want to buy a copy directly from Ollie, now where do you go?
Now you go to olivernorth.com. You can still get a signed copy in time for Father's Day. You can go to any Costco on the East Coast of the United States because I don't want to give away our secret. But
wait a minute, even the Costco where you and I have hot dogs?
Yes.
In Leesburg, Virginia.
I was going to say that. In Leesburg. And I just left Winchester. And I pulled off on 81 to talk to my good friend Mark Levin, who I've known for almost 30 years.
Yeah, it's
as a man who tells the truth to the American people.
You know, Ollie, you're the greatest. If people got to know you the way I know you, they would really appreciate it. I love you too, buddy. Now, look, be careful.
Hang on, and I'll tell you about our old friend who's the DEA who traveled with me.
All right, man. Well, God bless. I'll see you later. Take care.